Part 81. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 828. After returning to the office and sitting down, Lin Li couldn't help but regret that she had agreed too hastily. After agreeing, it was equivalent to establishing a love relationship between the two. From then on, their attitude towards getting along would be different, but she had no idea what attitude she should use to face Johan. Although they were married and lived together before, to be precise, they were cooperating. When she faced him, she simply regarded him as a partner. But now that their relationship has changed, she really don't know how to face him. At the end of the morning, Lin Li has been struggling with the issue of how to control the attitude between the two. On the other hand, Johan seems to have not changed at all. As usual, the work that should be ordered is followed by the order, and the attitude is the same as usual, without any change. Even now when Lin Li was sending the documents in, her eyes were still staring at the documents in her hands, and she never specifically raised her eyes to look at her or say a word of nonsense that had nothing to do with work. Lin Li walked out of his office holding the signed document, feeling a little relaxed and a little depressed. What was relaxing was that Johan didn't do anything extra, which showed that the relationship between the two was different now. But the little depression was also because Johan acted too naturally, which made her feel a little loss in her heart. This loss was so small that Lin Li didn't even notice it. And just when Lin Li was a little disappointed and thinking about how to adjust the relationship between her and Johan in the future, Special Assistant Sue came up in a hurry, without even knocking on the door, and rushed directly into Johan's office, and then he didn't know what to say. Something, and hurried out again. When Lin Li was still confused about what was going on, the phone on the table rang. It was an insider. Johan asked him to book 2 tickets for the latest flight to Guangzhou. After hanging up the phone, Lin Li called the airline directly and confirmed that the latest flight to Zhangcheng was at 6 p.m. today. After confirming the flight and seat, Lin Li knocked on the door and went in to tell Johan. After knocking on the door, she pushed the door open and saw Johan packing the documents and information on the table and putting them into his briefcase. Standing in front of the desk, Lin Li said with a professional look, "General Manager, the flight tickets have been booked." Waiting for the flight at 6 o'clock he was businesslike, and she was businesslike, her attitude even more polite and respectful than before. Hearing this, Johan nodded, put down the document in his hand, raised his hand, looked at his watch, and whispered to himself, "There are still 3 hours, the time is just right." Wait a minute. The moment Lin Li turned around and stepped forward, Johan behind her stopped her. Lin Li turned around, looked at him, and asked, "Does the general manager have any other instructions?" Sitting on that leather swivel chair. Johan looked at her steadily, his eyes fixed on her, and he didn't say a word for a long time. Lin Li felt a little uncomfortable when he looked at her. She subconsciously looked down at her clothes to make sure there was nothing wrong with her. She looked at her and asked tentatively, "Is there anything dirty on my face?" He reached out and touched his face with some uncertainty. Johan shook his head, chuckled lightly, then stood up and walked around the desk towards her. Lin Li looked at him steadily, somewhat unclear as to what he wanted to do. Johan stood still in front of her, then stretched out his hand to hug her into his arms, took her head and leaned it against his chest, and gently placed his hand on her back. His movements were not abrupt, at least he did it very naturally. Leaning against his chest, Lin Li was a little unable to react at first, and was held by him in a daze. After she was stunned, she realized that she was not used to such sudden intimacy. She was not mentally prepared, so she reached out and subconsciously reached out. She pushed him away, but Johan grabbed her hand and asked her to put it on his waist. Then a low, magnetic voice sounded above her head, "Just hold me like this." Lin Li was not used to it, so she was a little nervous. She blushed and made some hesitant excuses, "Yes, I'm still in the office." Johan chuckled, gently stroking her hair, which was not long but very smooth, and whispered, "There are only two of us on this floor, who will see it?" Lindley lowered her head and said nothing. The temperature on her face became even hotter. The hand on his waist was at a loss. She wanted to reach out and hug him, but she was a little embarrassed, so she opened her hand and squeezed him for a long time. A result: there was an accident in the project in Guangzhou, and I had to rush over immediately to deal with it. Johan explained the reason for his trip to Guangzhou. Lindley didn't know what to say. She wanted to ask what the accident was, but she was afraid that she had gone too far and didn't dare to ask more. After thinking for a long time, she just nodded and said softly, "Yes." For a while, the two of them stopped talking, and the atmosphere in the whole room was too quiet and awkward. Lindley opened her mouth to say something, but she didn't know what to say, so she opened her mouth for a long time without saying a word. Just when Lindley started to speak but then stopped, Johan spoke slowly and said, "I know we started a little suddenly and unexpectedly, let us slowly get to know each other. I want to tell your point is, although we started a little hastily, I am a serious person and I will not play emotional games, so you can rest assured that from now on I will treat you seriously and learn to love you seriously." Hearing this, the corners of Lindley's mouth curled up slightly, and the hand that she was holding so tightly that she didn't know where to put it unconsciously loosened it, then gently placed it on his lean waist, and opened it lightly. She responded to him with her thin lips and said, "Let us work together to forget the past and start over." Johan nodded, reached out and stroked her short hair, and said softly, "Okay." Lindley also nodded. At this moment, leaning on his chest again, she had slowly forgotten her last nervousness and confusion. The two hugged each other for a while. Johan slowly let go of the person in his arms, letting her step away from his words, and then looked at the person in front of him steadily. Lindley felt a little embarrassed. He turned his face away and lowered his head slightly, with a blush and shyness on his face. Looking at her shy look, Johan felt a little inexplicable. He reached out and gently lifted her chin to prevent her from escaping his eyes. However, a strong desire to kiss her suddenly grew in his heart. He still remembered the warm lips and the soft tongue, and he was a little greedy for that beautiful taste. Lindley's face turned red at the sight. Adult men and women naturally knew what would happen next. Her heartbeat suddenly accelerated. She reached out and took his hand down, trying to escape, and said, I'm going out first." After that, turned around and was about to go out, but just when she wanted to take back her hand and leave, Johan used a force on his hand to pull her back into his arms, then lowered his head and kissed her passionately, holding her waist with one hand, holding the back of her head firmly with one hand. The posture was domineering and there was no room for escape. However, compared to his domineering and forceful posture, his kiss was very gentle, with gentle pecks and sucks. The kiss was very attentive and comfortable. Lindley was imprisoned by him and couldn't escape. At first, she struggled slightly, but when the kiss got deeper, she forgot to struggle. The hand that was originally struggling slowly lifted up and wrapped around his neck, opened her mouth and slowly responded to his deep kiss. And when the two of them kissed deeper and deeper, suddenly the door was pushed open, and then Special Assistant Sue's voice sounded a little abruptly, "General Manager, have you booked your flight tickets? I didn't see Secretary Lin outside, she." The voice stopped suddenly, and he stared blankly at the two people in front of him. Special Assistant Sue really couldn't react. "Darling, what on earth is going on?" Lindley suddenly pushed Johan away, her face flushed as if the blood was flowing backwards, her head lowered, not daring to look at anyone, and she trotted out of the office. Johan touched the corner of his mouth with some unfinished thoughts. When he looked up and saw Special Assistant Sue standing at the door, his eyes complained that he had interrupted his good deeds. Special Assistant Sue was still a little unable to react. He turned to watch Lindley run away and disappear into the aisle. He turned to look at Johan and said blankly, General Manager, and Secretary Lin. In fact, many people are angry about Lin Li's identity, because she was directly airborne, and she seems not very qualified to work as a secretary. She can only handle some simple documents and information. Logically speaking, as Johan's secretary, that's almost like a special assistant. In terms of ability, Lin Li didn't seem to have it at all. He was curious and went to the personnel department to ask for Lin Li's information, but he only knew that Lin Li had worked in the sales department before. Whose performance was average, was directly promoted by Johan and transferred to his secretary more than a month later. There was no sign before, so various rumors began to spread in the company. It was rumored that Lin Li was Johan's lover, but according to his usual contact through observation, Lin Li and Johan did not act too intimately, and even when they spoke, there was no special feeling. In addition, Johan never brought Lin Li to attend events and social events. The female companion has always been Manager Xiao of the Public Relations Department, but I didn't expect that he would break up the good news today. I guess those rumors and messages were not groundless. Johan glanced at him with a sharp look, and said coldly, knock on the door before coming in from now on. If you do it again next time, you will have 1 month's salary deducted. After saying that, he turned around and went back to the desk, and continued to clean up what he had just done. Completed documents and information. Assistant Sue stretched out his hand and touched his nose boredly. Remembering that he came up to inquire about the next flight and time, he turned around and backed out of Johan's office, but Lin Li was nowhere to be seen outside the door. At this moment, Lin Li was discovered by Special Assistant Sue that she and Johan were kissing in the office. She had been too shy to see anyone for a long time. She hid in the bathroom directly after coming out of Johan's office. Assistant Sue scratched his head and could only retreat back to Johan's office. However, when he saw Johan's piercing eyes directed at him, Assistant Sue quickly reacted and exited, reaching out and knocking on the door. He opened the door half open and came in with a smile after seeing Johan nod. Johan glanced at him and said, Lin Li has already told me the flight and time. Besides, Lin Li is my wife. Don't let me hear any messy rumors in the company again. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 829. Second update. Chu Xia felt that her bottom line had been refreshed again. What this woman named Zhang Yuzhen said is clear and logical, but again, where does she stand? Damn it, is it appropriate for her to complain to her father when she had a quarrel with a man? It's not like she didn't know her father's temper. He was frightened by the criticisms and struggles in those years. He would listen quietly to anyone who spoke to him, but wouldn't he let the other party take advantage of the situation and make her angry? And the most disgusting thing about this woman is that she used lies that are similar to the truth to slander her own mother. I have seen such shameless people, but I have never seen such shameless people. Did she think that she would definitely believe what she said? Also, my reputation in the village was really bad before, and given my age, isn't that what people think? Are you done thinking of this? Chu Xia looked at her mockingly. Tell me who the person who instigated you is. Tell me now. I guarantee you won't regret it. What are you talking about? Zhang Yuzhen looked at Chu Xia with a blank look on her face. My child, are you angry? I'm just a rural woman, who can give me orders. Forget it, don't talk about knocking me down. Chu Xia smiled sweetly at her. By the way, don't you know what the man I married does? Let me tell you this, if he wants to find out what you did 20 years ago, he can do it now. So, do you think your little secret will be a problem with me? Originally, I wanted to give you a chance. Since you don't cherish it, you can't blame me. Don't think I'm scaring you. I really can't do it. By the way, let me tell you about my husband's temper. He is absolutely cold, hard, and stubborn. No one can convince him of the things he has decided, including his grandparents, parents, and parents. You kid, the more you talk, the more mysterious you become. Jang Yuzhen was still smiling, but her smile was a little forced. Chu Xia really admires this woman's mental endurance. If it were her mother or her fat aunt, she would definitely be frightened. However, according to what my father and mother said, this woman has never left the village in her life. Apart from being a bit hot-tempered, there is really nothing special about her. So, she can act so calm now, and things are even more unusual. Chu Xia rolled her eyes and continued, I can give you enough benefits to leave your hometown and come here to ruin the relationship between my parents and understand us. The circle is actually very small. After locking the circle, do you think it is difficult to find out who the other party is? He can inoculate you, and the prerequisite for giving you benefits is that you really do what he asks you to do. But now do you think you can do it? If you can't do it, can you still get all this promised to you? When the time comes, your son will be affected again. Speaking of this, Chu Xia paused, and sure enough, Zhang Yuzhen's expression changed. Chu Xia looked at Zhao Yulan, Mom, have you guessed who it is? Who? Zhao Yulan looked at her daughter in confusion. After listening for a long time, she became more and more confused. She felt that what her daughter said was quite reasonable, but she couldn't figure it out at all. Who else could be there besides Zhang Yueshen's family? Chu Xia snorted coldly and looked at Zhang Yuzhen. It would be easier to find out whether it was Che Yelai who instigated you or Zhang Yuzheng instigated you, right? Zhang Yuzhen looked at Chu Xia with a horrified expression, and then sat down on the ground. The answer was naturally self-evident. What are they trying to do? Zhao Yulan looked at her daughter with a confused look on her face. I have nothing to do with them. Why aren't they done yet? They must have climbed onto something high. Chu Xia sneered, those kinds of people, if you think about their character, isn't everything they do normal? Lin Mengran gave Chu Xia a thumbs up, youngest. I'm really impressed by you. With just a few words, you were able to find out the person behind the scenes. It's a shame to study medicine. You should be doing criminal investigation. You. Chu Xia pushed her, it's just such a small thing, and it can be linked to criminal investigation? Let you put it like that, it's too easy to do criminal investigation. Why did you hit the target? Can you tell me your idea? Chu Xia glared at her and looked at Zhang Yuzhen, you're not going to say anything yet, are you? It's just you who destroys other people's families, or the family of a soldier's wife. Just wait, even if you don't go to jail, your son will be implicated by you. As soon as she heard that her son was implicated, Zhang Yuzhen said anxiously, everyone is responsible for the work. My son doesn't even know what I do. I'll tell you everything. Don't implicate my son, okay? As soon as a few people left the factory gate in early summer, Lin Baohe quickly opened the car door and let them get in. Another person handed a hot water bottle. Why have you been here for so long in this cold weather? If you don't come out, I will go in to find you. Let's talk at home. Zhao Yulan looked a little sluggish and closed her eyes after saying that. Lin Baohe looked at his daughter worriedly. Chu Xia smiled consolingly at her father, Dad, it's okay. It's just a long story. Mom wants to go home and sit down and talk quietly. Lin Baohe responded, but his expression was still a little solemn. He knew his wife too well. If he hadn't been shocked, how could he look like this? The few people returned home in silence, and Wan Lao and Aunt Chin came out to welcome them. Things are not going well, Wan Lao asked after seeing the expressions on several people's faces. It's pretty smooth. Chu Xia smiled bitterly, it's just because it was so smooth and I knew everything without any mental preparation that I was in a bad mood. She sighed and said, let me calm down and tell you. Listen, I'll go up and call Zhou Mikang, Mengran, come upstairs with me. Okay, Lin Mengran responded and hurriedly followed. She was worried that it would be too embarrassing to leave her alone. After all, this was a matter involving the feelings of the elders. She even regretted following him. As soon as Chu Xia walked in, the phone rang. "Zhou Mikang is here." Without waiting for Chu Xia to say anything, he said bluntly, "I know everything. Don't worry, I will handle this matter. You take care of yourself and tell your parents that no one can hurt them. I will take care of everything." Yet Chu Xia sighed. Mom was very shocked. She may be blaming herself. What does this have to do with mother? She is the victim. Please advise mother. I know. After a pause, Chu Xia said, "Zhou Mikang, I don't want to ask you anymore who the person you arranged to be beside me is. Actually, it's better not to know." "You?" Zhou Mikang smiled helplessly. "Why are everything related? I won't let you know. It's not because I don't trust you, but because I hope you will behave more naturally and the other party will behave more naturally. Do you understand?" "I understand, but..." Chu Xia chuckled twice and asked, "I still want to know, how many people have you arranged to be around me?" "4. Ah." Zhou Mikang sighed, "This is also their wish. When you leave school, they will continue to stay in school, and they will graduate as usual, fulfilling their dream." "I understand." Chu Xia glanced at Lin Mengran and simply put the phone on speakerphone. "Zhou Mikang, let's talk about Zhou Hai. Mengran is also here. She talked with Zhou Zhang in the afternoon. She knows some things about the Zhou family better than I do, so I'm putting the phone on speakerphone now and I'll tell you first. If you have any questions, just ask them. If I can't answer them, let Mengran tell you." Lin Mengran's face flushed red, and she said, "Hello, teacher." "Hello, Mr. Zhou." "Hello." After a pause, Zhou Mikang's voice sounded again, "Tell me." As long as there were outsiders, he would speak in a short and scary manner. Chu Xia curled her lips and said, "Zhou Zhang was definitely not sent here by Yamiru, and he doesn't agree with Zhou Hai and Yamiru being together." She said what she had said before. "I told Zhou Mixang in detail what I had talked about with Zhou Zhang, and also told him what Zhou Zhang had asked him to do, and asked him to try not to hurt Zhou Hai when he dealt with it." When she finished speaking, Lin Mengran quickly continued, "Zhou Zhang said that the battle for the head of their family became intense after his brother and Yamiru got along. Originally, his father's title as acting head of the family was about to be taken off, and he was basically determined to be one of the first candidates for the next head of the family. However, after what happened to his brother, his uncle and third uncle both protested. He said that his father could not even educate his own son well, and it was even more impossible for him to lead a family to glory. His grandfather added another half year to the investigation of his father. So, if his father made any mistake within half a year, or in other words, his brother did something wrong within half a year, his father's position as head of the family would definitely be gone, and they will also be kicked out of the team of family head candidates. He came to me because he hoped that I could help him bring a message to Zhou Qian, hoping to get some help from him, and also hoping that in their generation, the two lefts could restore contact. Of course, he is not a particularly power-minded person. In fact, his uncle and his first cousin are too narrow-minded. He is worried that the Zhou family will really be doomed if they fall into their hands. He and I are actually in the same situation, and I can quite understand his mood. Mr. Zhou, if it is convenient for you, please help him." Hearing this, Chu Xia chuckled and interrupted her. "Zhou Zhang officially confessed to Mengran today and said that he wanted to be with her. Therefore, if you marry Zhou Zhang, you will be helping Mengran. The two of them cherish each other. People who are like each other will soon be in love with each other." Lin Mengran defended anxiously, "No, no, he just suggested that to make my sister angry. Mr. Zhou, please don't believe it. It's really not because of this that I plead for him. That's weird. Lin Mengran. Can we still be good friends?" Rs. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 830. Chapter 730. After sitting for a while, Fang Jing's cousins saw that Chu Xia was easy to get along with, so they would interject from time to time. They are not much different in age. After the initial restraint was removed, everyone quickly became familiar with each other. It wasn't until Lin Wenjie came over to call for dinner that everyone stood up without feeling satisfied. After leaving the house, Chu Xia glanced at the place where the Lin brothers and Zhou Mikang were gathering, and found that Lin Wengxiu had returned, but Xiao Min was not there, so she knew that Lin Wengxiu must not have the airs of a grown man. Men of this era, Chu Xia couldn't help but sigh secretly. Or do you really want to wait until you lose it before regretting it? Or do you really have to wait until many years later to understand what true love is before you regret it? But by then, it was already too late. Thinking of this, Chu Xia secretly laughed at herself. She was a newbie in terms of emotions, but her former classmates and friends would definitely laugh out loud if they heard this emotion. However, if they knew how people of this era viewed feelings, they probably wouldn't laugh at her, right? To put it very simply, in her era, it was very normal for boys to carry bags for girls, but in this era, if a boy carries a bag for a girl, he will definitely become the object of ridicule by many people. If Zhou Mikang hadn't had his status and personality, and if everyone hadn't been accustomed to his past personality, I'm afraid he would have become the object of ridicule for everyone now. Therefore, whenever she thinks about this, Chu Xia feels that she is very lucky. She does not need her teachings to meet a man who treats her sincerely and will not ignore her for the sake of face. Naturally, we had a very happy meal. During the meal, the elders on both sides spoke and gave their most sincere blessings to the two juniors. The wedding date of Lin Wenjie and Fang Jingzi has also been officially determined. It is the 26th of February on the lunar calendar, which is still 37 days away. In fact, the elders of both parties have been angry about this for a long time. Today, according to custom, the man officially presents the daily gift to the woman, so, coupled with the previous preparations, the time is quite sufficient. Weddings in this era are not like those in later generations. You have to do that. Someone will definitely come to talk to him soon. Of course, the Lin family is a big family, so there won't be anyone to talk to, but gossip is definitely inevitable. Although the marriage between Chu Xia and Zhou Mikang was not grand, in this era, it was already considered top-notch. No one else was gossiping. It was just because Zhou Mikang's marriage had been delayed for too long, and Zhou Mikang's personality was so bad. Naturally, no one dared to hit it. After dinner, Ms. Fang was immediately sent back to her room to rest. Although she insisted that she was not tired, it was clear from the look on her face that she had been holding on. If she hadn't been so stubborn, everyone would have really wanted to send her back to the hospital right now. Chu Xia took the time to quietly ask Zhou Mikang, what will Lin Wengxiu say when she comes back? When Lin Wengxiu came back, the Lin brothers must have asked her about this matter, and they didn't want to have others repeat it again, which would naturally trouble Commander Zhou. Xiao Min doesn't forgive him and insists on separation. Zhou Mikang raised his eyebrows. You don't need to persuade him. I think, with his current condition, the girl will suffer if she follows him. I'm not trying to persuade him. Chu Xia curled her lips. I tried to persuade them before because I would rather demolish a temple than break up a marriage, but now he's behaving like this. What else should I advise? When the time comes, if my wife is really unhappy with him, why can't she blame me? Moreover, he couldn't figure it out. No matter how good Xiao Min was to him, he couldn't feel it, so naturally he couldn't feel happiness. I won't do such a thankless thing. Let nature take its course, we have done our due diligence, and no matter what happens in the future, it has nothing to do with us. You really think so? Joe Mikang said with a smile in his eyebrows. Just now I was worried that you were going to intervene again. It seems that I still underestimate you. You understand? TCH, Chusia rolled her eyes at him. You are the one who is confused. When did I not understand? Joe Mikang, are you feeling uncomfortable if you don't look down on me for a while? Joe Mikang chuckled. Pay attention to your image. What do you mean? Chusia glanced at him sideways. If I don't pay attention to my image and lose your people, you will be like Lin Wengxiu and give me an ultimatum. Thinking too much, Joe Mikang lowered his voice. Someone is secretly taking a look at you. I just want to remind you, don't lose the image of a lady you have established in front of them. Who is staring at me? Chusia also lowered her voice. Tell me, I will pretend to walk over for a while to see who that person is, or I want to make sure whether he is peeking at me or you. Your left rear. Joe Mikang said, quickly turning his head and smiling at the boy who was staring blankly at Chusia. Do you have a problem with us? Come and tell us. No. No. It's okay. The boy who was caught turned red and looked at a loss. Chusia had turned around, saw the other person's appearance clearly, and glared at Joe Mikang. You jealous man, he is 1 year younger than me. He is the son of the third sister-in-law's family. Don't scare other children in the future. I won't dare to come here again. You still find fault with me for showing such magnanimity? Joe Mikang shook his head. He looked at my wife dumbfounded. Not only did I not scold him, but I also asked him how I could help, and even asked him to come and sit down. Chusia interrupted him contemptuously. You can pull him down. It's just because he was looking at me and you were angry, that's why you deliberately prevented him from getting off the stage. Look at how stingy you are. Joe Mikang snorted coldly. You are my wife and you are already married to me. As long as anyone is interested in you, no matter how old they are, I will kill them all. This is the safest way, do you understand? Understood. Chusia nodded, with a speechless expression. I despise you. I won't talk to you anymore. I'm going to find Fang Jing'ai. She will introduce a classmate to me this afternoon. Which classmate? Joe Mikang frowned and grabbed her. You're going to enroll in school right away, and you're just a day or two away. Don't forget you're pregnant now. Why are you running around? You can't suffocate me to death even though I'm pregnant, right? Chusia frowned dissatisfied. Joe Mikang, do you not believe me? Does it mean that I can't associate with any men except you in the future? No, Joe Mikang coughed unnaturally. You are too young and your ability to distinguish human nature is not good enough. In a few years, you will have experienced more things, so I naturally have nothing to worry about. Chusia looked at him funny. I understand what you mean. Are you afraid that I won't have enough concentration and will run away with someone else? You can't do that kind of thing. I don't want you to meet someone with bad character who will affect your heart. Joe Mikang looked at her with a smile. How about I go with you? Chusia nodded indifferently. Sure, as long as you don't think it's awkward for a grown man to be with a group of girls. Make an appointment at the tea room. While you are talking, I will be at the other table. I will only escort you. Then what do you think of other people's character? You'll know just by listening, not by looking. What if I say I'm meeting a girl? Same, you have to take a look. Okay. Chusia was really defeated by the group leader Tongzi, but then she thought that it would be better for the group leader Tongzi to follow, otherwise it might be difficult for them to enter the state-owned tea house. It wasn't until Fang Jingzi said that she didn't need to go to a tea house, just meet at her home, that Chusia realized, yes, her thinking is really rigid. In this era, how can we pay so much attention to meeting each other? If she really went to the tea room, Wouldn't the girl who would become her classmate misunderstand that she was showing off? The bastard captain, hurt her again. When she turned around to talk to Zhou Mikang, the other person looked at her speechlessly. Lin Wenjia had just gotten engaged to Fang Jingzi, so our whole family rushed over in great force, and even asked a girl from the neighbor's house to come over. Are you saying this sincerely to make your neighbor think about it? That's right. Chu Xia scratched her head and felt that what Zhou Mikang said made sense. At the same time, she also secretly despised herself. How could her brain be so short-circuited? She still wanted others to think about it. Could it be because she was pregnant? So you became stupid? Thinking like this, Xia was a little scared. She was going to college soon. If she was really pregnant for 3 years, would she be killed? Will her efforts to improve herself be ruined? Zhou Mikang, do you think I've become stupid recently? Chu Xia stared at Zhou Mikang's face and asked seriously. No, team leader Tongzi comforted her, this is the result of the collision of eras. These things were normal in your era, but in today's era, they are a bit thoughtless. Comrade, you still need to adapt slowly, so if you encounter anything in the future, if you don't understand, just ask me. After all, I grew up in this era, I have seen more than you, and I have heard more than you. If you have more, you will naturally think more than you do. Okay, Chu Xia looked at Zhou Mikang with a depressed look, so, I won't have to report everything to you in the future? I will almost lose my personal freedom. This is considered communication between husband and wife. Otherwise, you have to talk to me, right? After frowning and thinking for a while, he felt that what the group leader said made sense. Chu Xia nodded, okay, if I don't understand, I'll try to ask you before I make a decision. Then I don't need to see you in this meeting today. It's better to wait until after enrollment. Besides, we can let Fang Jing'ai go to school when the time comes, which is the same thing. Zhou Mikang nodded, that's right, let them go back and talk to the girl. Then, when you go to school to report, won't you be able to find her by checking the roster? So, Chu Xia went to Fang Jingzi's sisters again and told them her decision. Fang Jingzi repeatedly said that it was her mistake, while Fang Jing'ai was a little disappointed. However, after thinking about it, she also felt that she had made a mistake before. The proposal was somewhat ill-advised. And the group leader, Tongzi, who was sitting there alone, had a smile on his face, little guy, fight with me, ha ha ha. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 831. After Che Yelai's words reached this point, Zhang Meixiang stopped trying to persuade her. She also thought of giving it a try. Anyway, her life had reached its lowest point. What would happen if it fell further? I think she has been envied by others as a proud daughter of heaven since she was a child, but now, it's true that a fallen phoenix is worse than a chicken. Even Zhang Jun, who has been chasing her like a pug, dared to dump her. She was puzzled as to why she couldn't reach high places. Originally, when her parents were not divorced, when her father was still the county magistrate, he was able to reach high places. Now that her parents are divorced, her father has been reduced to an ordinary clerk. Well, he can't reach that high, but it's really hilarious. The relationship with her grandfather has expired, and the relationship with her father has gone away in an instant. Now even if her father wants to help her, he is unable to do so. Now that my mother has found a new way, why not take a gamble? Besides, even if she really loses, she will not be implicated. Thinking like this, Zhang Meixiang felt better instantly. However, through this incident, she also understood a truth. If she had excellent skills, she would not be optimized to the workshop. Therefore, the most important thing for her was the best thing is to seize the time to review and strive to become an official college student in the fall. Thinking of this, she felt a little depressed again. Originally, Lin Chuxia was not as good as her in everything, but now she was better, everything was better than her. Based on this, she should also support her mother to defeat Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe. Then, let's see if Lin Chuxia can still live such a happy life. If she knew that her father was having affairs with other women and divorcing her mother, she wouldn't believe that the Zhou family could still like Lin Chuxia as their daughter-in-law. Haha. The more she thought about it, the more excited she became. In fact, the sad look of Chu Xia with tears on her face immediately appeared in front of her eyes, and she laughed unconsciously. "Why are you so happy?" Looking at her daughter, Che Yelai was speechless. "You can read like a fool, you are really good at it." "No," Zhang Meixiang turned back and smiled at Che Yelai, "I was happy just thinking about Lin Chuxia's suffering." "Mom, I also think you did the right thing. The fact that they can let us live in this house shows that they are very capable. Moreover, the fact that they can investigate the affairs of the Lin family so clearly is even more extraordinary. We live here, and we don't all know everything. We are so far away, but we know everything. Mom, you are right, we are really going to be lucky this time." "That goes without saying," Che Yelai said with a proud look on her face. She agreed. "After the matter is completed, your father and I will remarry and write a promise never to divorce, and then your father will be reinstated. If your dad doesn't know what's going on, there's no need to be a junior clerk. I'll ask him to go back to his hometown and farm on his back. I see no matter how he flirts with that little bitch. Mom, I really want to talk to you about this. You obviously have my dad in your heart and still want to be with him, so don't always be rude to him and quarrel every time you see him. Yes, he was in his grandfather's favor back then, but now he is no longer in his grandfather's favor. Is it possible for you to want him to know? What he sees now is only what is in front of him. It is the stupidest thing for you to settle old scores. Just make a promise to him about the future and be gentle to him. When the time comes, you can see whether my dad is close to you or to that Lu Gaifen. Just by hearing that name, Lu Gaifen is quite vulgar. A widow whose man died has a child with her, and she doesn't even urinate to look after herself. How could my dad like her? My father is very fond of her now, just because she can help with washing clothes and cooking. To put it bluntly, he is using her as a free nanny. It's a shame that she is still there." Yes, that's what happened. Che Yelai immediately felt that her daughter was speaking to her heart, and slapped her on the thigh. "Just let her serve. Anyway, she will be the loser then, not me, my man. She took care of me, I have to thank her, don't you think so, my daughter?" "Mom, stop saying such hypocritical things." Lu Meijun stared at Che Yelai speechlessly. "I can help with everything else, but not this." "Mom, don't you think so?" "Hey." Che Yelai also sighed quietly. "I think I was also a respected master by everyone in the past. In the past 6 months, your father has been tormented by me, and I am almost like a small citizen. We are ordinary citizens now." Zhang Meixiang's face darkened as she thought of the various exclusions she suffered when she lived in her grandfather's house. "We are not even as good as ordinary citizens. If this house is repossessed, we will have no choice but to live back in our grandfather's house. It's your father who killed 1,000 people. If he hadn't returned the house, how could our mother and I have ended up like this?" Che Yelai sighed with a wry smile. Che Yelai's eyes were full of desolation. "Speaking of which, Mom is still a bitch, knowing clearly that your dad did this just to break up with Mom, but Mom still misses him, not only wants to be with him, but also wants to reinstate him in office, and not let anyone laugh. Hey, woman ah." After hesitating, Zhang Meixiang asked, "What if Dad still doesn't get back together with Mom? Then he will go farming." "Mom, the relationship between you and Dad is not actually a real relationship. You see, the prerequisite for you to give it to him is that he must give it to you. True love should be selfless. Since mom can't be selfless, she can't force dad to be selfless, right? Are you my mother's daughter? Che-Yeli frowned and looked at her daughter with a look of displeasure. It is precisely because I am my daughter that I give my mother a realistic analysis. In this way, I can make my mother less resentful and avoid losing her mind and regretting it in the future. After being silent for a long time, Che-Yeli looked at her daughter. My Xiang, you are better than mom. When mom was young, she was not as good as you in being able to hold things up and put them down. In fact, looking back now and thinking about it, if I didn't marry your dad, my mom might have married a better man. Your dad actually doesn't care about love. It is impossible for a man who is not affectionate to truly cherish his wife and children. Your grandma reminded her back then, but my mother couldn't listen. You are really better than mom. As long as the other party shows some signs, you can really break it off without getting entangled. You can take it up and let it go. In fact, you are like your dad. Does this mean that I am as unloving as my father? Zhang Maixiang looked at her mother with a dark look and stopped talking. In fact, her mother was right. If her mother could not provide her with a place to live and bring her hope, she would probably have gone to find her father long ago, right? Here the mother and daughter were waiting excitedly and tangledly, while over there, Zhou Mikang had already gone to Yezai. Since returning to City A, Yamiru has been living in the old house of the Ye family. Although there was some commotion in the air, Mr. Ye was still reluctant to let her move out in the end. After all, she was his granddaughter, and she had had a miscarriage. No matter how angry he is, he can't ignore her health and be indifferent to her. Xiaomi, Mr. Ye was very happy to see Zhou Mikang. For him, this was really a rare visitor. Although the two families had resumed contact, he mostly went to the Zhou family and the Zhou family never came. Zhou Mikang is considered the first. Grandpa, I have something to tell you. Zhou Mikang looked at Mr. Ye seriously. Can we go to the study to talk? Okay. Mr. Ye stood up and waved to Mrs. Ye and his daughter-in-law Qiang Yuxian, who were looking over. Instruct the kitchen to start cooking, and let Xiaomi eat at home at noon. No, I'll leave as soon as I finish. Zhou Mikang refused without thinking, and looking at his face, you could tell that what he said was not polite. You. Mr. Ye shook his head helplessly and led the way to the study. This kid is getting more and more arrogant. Mrs. Ye muttered dissatisfiedly, how many of you can make your dad keep food? Mom, maybe something is really wrong with him. Qiang Yuxian hurriedly smoothed things over. She didn't dare to follow her mother-in-law's wishes. If it got to her father-in-law's ears, she would really be devastated and go away. 10 minutes later, Zhou Mikang came out of the study, nodded to his mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, and quickly disappeared. Old Mrs. Ye was stunned for a while, then hurriedly went to knock on the door of the study. Old Ye, what are you doing in there? Are you okay? It's okay, Mr. Ye responded, his voice full of exhaustion. A biting dog doesn't bark. This is his biggest feeling now. In the evening, Yamiru came home on time after work as usual. When she entered the door, she greeted her grandmother and mother with a smile, and then took the initiative to run to the kitchen to help. During this period of time, she seemed to have changed as a person. Mr. Ye once thought that she really knew she was wrong, but he didn't know. Looking at the busy figure with complicated eyes, Mr. Ye finally made up his mind. Qiang Yuxian had been observing the old man's expression, and she was very worried. After Zhou Mikang left, the old man stayed in the study for an hour before coming out. Although she didn't say anything after coming out, she felt inexplicably panic. Now, she was almost certain that what Zhou Mikang came to talk about was related to her daughter, so. When the old man wasn't paying attention, Qiang Yuxian walked up to her daughter and whispered, Grandpa may know, you have to be mentally prepared. Yamiru's body trembled imperceptibly, and she said softly In fact, she had thought of this day for a long time, but even if she knew it, she couldn't help but want to do it. Some things are like this. She knew it was like a moth flying to the flame, but she still had to pounce on it and give it a try. It's life, everyone settles in with their destiny. Mrs. Yep, who was sitting next to Mr. Yep, sighed quietly. People are really smart, but they are fooled by their cleverness. How could those little tricks deceive the old man with piercing eyes? Old man. When the old man's eyes touched her, the old lady swallowed back what she said. She knew it was useless, so why did she say it? It just adds to the worries. Ours. We have been working hard to improve the reading experience. If you like it, please share it with your friends. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 832. 1 Update. Nothing could be seen on the surface, but Yamiru was already panicking. Even though she had been mentally prepared, she still couldn't control her emotions at this time. Looking at the soup pot that had just been turned off on the gas stove, she gritted her teeth and reached out to pick it up. Ah! Bang! Miss! The cracking screams and Jinma's screams sounded almost at the same time. Cheon Yuxian quickly got up and ran to the kitchen. Mrs. sighed, got up and followed. Yamiru held up her hands and inhaled in pain. There were broken pieces of porcelain on the ground, and there were steaming soup stains on her trouser legs and shoes. When she saw Cheon Yuxian and Mrs. He explained with an aggrieved face, I forgot to wear gloves and went to pick it up. Cheon Yuxian stepped forward and took her daughter's hand to look at it. Her eyes were red. You kid, how can you forget something? Look at these hands, the skin is cooked. She squatted down and just lifted her trouser legs. She was shocked again. I have to let it go. The skin and flesh are separated. Go into the house and lie down quickly. Mom calls the doctor to handle it. You said you are a girl, why are you so careless? What if you get a scar on your calf, how ugly. Old Mrs. also saw the way the leather was sticking to her trouser legs, and said hurriedly, Yuxian, stop being so wordy, help Myru into the house quickly. I'll call Dr. Xiao Song and ask her to give her the medicine passed down from her family's ancestors. Get the burn ointment. Looking at his wife and daughter-in-law who were busy together, Mr. Ye sat on the sofa without moving. If he couldn't see through this little trick, then his life would be in vain. However, Chi Gaiki, he will not stop him from seeing a doctor. After all, he is his own granddaughter. However, after seeing a doctor, he still has to face things that should be faced. This time, he will not relent no matter what he says. Song Yankai was having dinner at home when she was called over by Mrs. Yamiru had huge blisters on the skin on her legs and feet, so Song Yankai used scissors to cut off her trouser legs, applied ointment, and warned, don't get it wet, and don't rub the blisters once it's broken, it'll be almost healed in about 7 days. It won't leave any scars, will it? Cheon Yuxian asked with a worried look. As long as the blisters can't be broken, there will definitely be no scars. After hesitation, Song Yankai looked at her mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. If something like this happens again in the future, it's far from the hospital and it takes time to wait for the doctor, so just use the best method. The simple method is to pour urine on it. Although it is a little dirty, the effect is very good. It will not leave scars and shorten the healing time. Of course, it must be without breaking the skin. Ugh. After retching twice, Yamiru looked at Song Yankai. Is there urine in the medicine you gave me? Song Yankai looked at her lightly. Yes, if you don't like it, just wash it off now. Why didn't you tell us earlier? Yamiru stared at Song Yankai angrily. You did it on purpose. Otherwise, why did you wait until the medicine was finished before telling us? The folk remedy I'm talking about is only for the first time you get burned. I'm telling you, it's because minor burns are common in life, and this one has the best effect. If it's too dirty, you can rinse it with light salt water constantly. However, the effect is definitely not as good as the previous method. Song Yankai nodded to Mrs. Ye and Chiang Yuxian, Grandma Ye, and Ye, I will leave the ointment for you, just change it twice a day. Okay. Don't want. Chiang Yuxian and Ye Mairu answered almost at the same time. Song Yankai took away the ointment in her hand and said, goodbye. After saying that, she turned around and left. She was willing to come to the door because of Mrs. Ye's respect. As for this woman, she wouldn't come even if I begged her. Okay. I really think I am a dish. Pooh. Yan Chi. Chiang Yuxian chased after her with a flattering smile on her face, give the ointment to Auntie. Mairu is not in a good mood. Don't take the nonsense to heart. Song Yankai handed her the ointment, smiled at her, turned around and went downstairs. Of course Chiang Yuxian didn't like Song Yankai's attitude, but she had just used her, so she had to pretend to be grateful, so she suppressed her reluctance and followed her downstairs to see her off. Mr. Ye was still sitting in the hall. When he saw Song Yankai coming down, he smiled and waved. Grandpa Ye, what are your orders? Song Yankai asked with a smile. Is your old man in good health? Song Yankai smiled and said, my grandpa is in good health. He eats well and sleeps soundly. Look at his posture, he is stronger than me. Does Xiao Yankai have a boyfriend? This topic was too big, and Song Yankai was stunned for a moment before saying, Grandpa, why are you asking about this? Does this have anything to do with me visiting a doctor? Haha. Mr. Ye laughed, it has nothing to do with you coming to see a doctor. Grandpa just wants to make sure that if he meets someone suitable, he can introduce it to you. Grandpa, please don't worry about me. I haven't had dinner yet. Goodbye, Grandpa, Song Yankai said as she turned around and walked out. She just nodded lightly to Chiang Yuxian, who was standing there. Dad, I'll go up and take a look at Mairu, Chiang Yuxian said with an ugly expression. What's there to see? Mr. Ye glanced at the time, isn't the medicine ready? Dad. Mr. Ye interrupted her, if you don't want to harm her, stop saying useless things. Biting her lip, Chiang Yuxian responded with a grieved expression, then I'll go up and call Mom and Mairu to come down for dinner. Just when Ye Zonghe came back, he frowned dissatisfied when he saw his wife's expression. What's wrong with you? Who are you showing your face to with a bitter face all day long? Zonghe, Mairu's hands and feet were burned, as well as her calf. Yan Chi just came to take a look. This is the ointment left behind, Chiang Yuxian said while showing her husband the ointment in her hand. It's just a burn. You don't have to act like this, right? Ye Zonghe's expression softened a little, it's nothing serious, right? Well, it'll be fine if you rest for about a week, but you can't touch the water. Is the activity okay? Okay, but you can't pop the blisters, or you'll leave scars. Then help her down to eat. In response, Chiang Yuxian went upstairs. Ye Zonghe sat next to his father. Dad, after all, she is Mairu's biological mother. It is inevitable that she will still feel sorry for her child. Don't be the same as her. I will let her change. Zonghe. Mr. Ye looked at his son with a calm expression. Do you also think that I am too harsh on Mairu? No, Ye Zonghe quickly shook his head. Mairu is already this age. If she is not stricter, her life will probably be ruined. Speaking of which, Dad is already tolerant to her. Sighing, Mr. Ye said, yes, you are tolerant enough. Okay, let's eat first. I will have something to say with you after dinner. This dinner was extremely depressing. Putting down his chopsticks, Mr. Ye looked at the group of people solemnly. Come to the study room, I have something to tell you. The expressions of several people became even more solemn. There is a rule in the Ye family that they will only go to the study room to discuss important decisions. Moreover, Such decisions must not be questioned or discussed. Yamiru and Cheongyuxian quickly looked at each other, and they saw deep worry in each other's eyes. After several people sat down in the study, Mr. Ye first looked at Ye Zhonghe. Do you know what I want to say? I don't know. Ye Zhonghe looked confused. He really didn't know what his father was going to say. He had been trying to remember just now, but he really couldn't think of the reason. Mr. Ye raised his eyebrows. In other words, you don't know what the mother and daughter did. Yamiru and Cheongyuxian's faces immediately turned pale. Ye Zhonghe glanced at his mother and daughter in confusion, and his expression suddenly darkened. Dad, what have they done? I don't have any objection to whatever you want to do. Is this something you have no objection to? Mr. Ye looked at him indifferently. Zhonghe, I have been living with you all these years. Although I didn't say it explicitly, Zhongliang and Zongjun all know that the Ye family, the next head of the family, is you. They both have no objection, but Miao Yanli and Aiyu Hung are definitely not convinced. Whether it is your generation or your next generation, Zhongliang and Zongjun are no worse than you. Even if their current development is not as good as yours, but they are younger than you, they will not necessarily be inferior to you when they are your age, right? As for the next generation, there is no need to compare. Myru alone has brought shame to the Ye family. To be honest, it is because of Myru's failure that I have not changed the choice of the head of the family. Otherwise, what position do you have in the Ye family? But, after a long sigh, Mr. Ye continued, you have disappointed me so much. Do you think that as the head of the family, you only need to do your job well? Your wife and daughter take advantage of your power to do things that are harmful to others, but you don't even know it. You say, how stupid are you? Ye Zhonghe looked at his father blankly, not knowing what to say. To be honest, until now, he really didn't know what his wife and daughter had done behind his back. Dad, I was wrong. Cheongyuxian stood up, her voice trembling. I just feel sorry for Myru. In fact, we didn't do anything, it's just what? Mr. Ye looked at her with a cold face. I never thought you were so confused. You have no bottom line in etiquette for the sake of a daughter who doesn't live up to expectations. Not to mention that the Zhou family and the Ye family have been family friends for many years. Even if they have an ordinary relationship with no friendship, would you have the nerve to do such a thing? In other words, how would you feel if someone used this method to deal with you? Ye Zhonghe glanced at his wife and daughter twice, and finally couldn't help but ask, what did your father and mother do? Ours. The fastest update, no pop-ups, please read. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 833. Yes, what did she and her daughter do? Cheongyuxian shrank and lowered her head, not daring to look at her husband. Do you regret it? She didn't know it herself, but anyway, seeing her daughter's current state, she was filled with unspeakable hatred for the three members of the Lin family. If it weren't for that Lin Chuxia, her daughter would never have ended up like this. She knew it was just to express her anger, but who made her her daughter's biological mother? If you don't care about your daughter, why don't you care about Lin Chuxia? As for the hypothesis mentioned by her father-in-law, she was very disdainful. If she had to look forward and backward in doing anything, wouldn't it be exhausting to death? It's no wonder that the Ye family is not as developed as the Zhou family now, and the old man's temper is too soft. But how to pass this level now? It's not that she didn't expect this result, it's just that her daughter begged her pitifully, but she really couldn't be hard-hearted. Moreover, her eldest daughter also stopped interacting with her because of Lin Chuxia's nosy. Old and new grudges made her reckless. I promised my little daughter. I originally thought that she would have enough time to think of a solution, but she didn't expect to be discovered so soon. Yamiru also lowered her head and said nothing. She did not regret everything she had done, and she had thought of this day. Therefore, she deliberately placed her injured hand on the table. She did not believe that Grandpa could be so cruel. Yazonghi waited for a long time, but without waiting for a word from his mother and daughter, he stood up and looked at her with a livid face. I'm asking you a question, why are you pretending to be dumb? If you have the guts to do something, why don't you have the guts to say it? Chiang Yuxian raised her head, her eyes filled with tears. Zonghi, I was wrong. Don't be angry. I just wanted to help my daughter vent her anger because I saw her pity. Yazonghi stared at her. If you want to take off the title of MRS, yeah, you can continue to play riddles here. No matter how good-tempered I am, I still have a bottom line. Dad. Don't make it difficult for Mom. She was forced by me. Yamiru raised her head and looked at her father calmly. Zhou Mikang has always loved me. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been there for so many years. I didn't have a wife, it was the appearance of that woman that ruined my happiness. I admit that I have done wrong things before, but I already know that I was wrong, and I also want to be a good daughter-in-law of the Zhou family. It was she who cut off all my paths and put my life on a dead end. All happiness obviously belongs to me, why should it all fall on her? How can an uneducated rural girl get whatever she wants? Just her. What are the qualifications for admission to university? If it weren't for the Zhou family, she would still be farming in the countryside. If I hadn't been stimulated by her, I wouldn't have been with Huang Xinlong, nor would I have become a widow at such a young age, nor would I have been obsessed with revenge. Not to mention becoming the object of ridicule. It's not that I don't want to start a new life, but I really can't do it. No matter which man I am with, all I think about is Zhou Mikang. Zhou and I are close, not because I like Zhou, but because I know that his younger brother Zhou and Lin Chuxia are in the same university. Originally, I wanted him to convince his younger brother to seduce Lin Chuxia, but unfortunately, his younger brother didn't listen to him at all. I had no choice but to think of other ways. For Lin Chuxia, her parents are the most important to her. Otherwise, her parents would not follow her wherever she goes. So, I decided to start with her parents, but I didn't use excessive means. It's just to help her verify whether her parents' relationship is really as good as everyone sees. If her father was truly devoted to her mother, it would definitely be unfair to fall into Zhangjian's trick, and there would definitely not be any conflict between Zhangjian and Zhao Yulan. Grandpa, to be honest, I was very happy to learn that Zhou Mikang had come to my house. That means that my method worked, and that means that Lin Chuxia's parents failed my test. I guess Lin Chuxia must be very anxious now, right? You must be disappointed too, right? With parents like that, I don't believe that Grandpa Zhou and Grandma Zhou will still value her as much as before. What kind of parents will make what kind of daughter? If Zhou Mikang doesn't want to be a cuckold, he must either look at her more closely or divorce her earlier. Otherwise, Zhou Mikang himself will definitely be the one who is ugly. Don't you think Zhou Mikang should thank me? Who else in this world would care for him as selflessly as I do? Going through all the trouble to make arrangements for him. Seeing the normality and pride on his daughter's face, Yazonghi couldn't believe his eyes and ears. This was his daughter? Who does this look like? No matter the Ye family or the Chiang family, there seems to be no such shameless people, right? How could she describe all her destruction as help and still do it so confidently? No wonder the father just asked his wife how she would feel if someone treated her like that. Yazonghi turned his eyes to his wife, his eyes full of disappointment. He always believed in her, thinking that with her understanding and companionship, his daughter would get better and better, but he did not expect that her understanding and companionship would be like this. He was not at home before about his eldest daughter. When he turned back to try to make amends, his eldest daughter's heart was already hurt. Tong Tong looked at him timidly, which made him feel heartbroken. Now, the eldest daughter has separated from her husband and moved away from her husband's house, but she says she doesn't want to come back home. He really can't understand what his wife is thinking. They are both daughters. Why is there such a big difference in how she treats them? Of course, the wife had her own reasons. She said she didn't want her eldest daughter to get divorced, so she forced her to go back. However, for a husband's family who doesn't value their eldest daughter, they can really be happy if they stay there without getting divorced. Ye Zhong and Gudong knelt in front of Mr. Ye. Dad, it's because I am so unqualified as a husband and father that they made so many mistakes. Please punish me. Is it useful for me to punish you? Mr. Ye sighed quietly. If I didn't punish you, I would have punished you long ago. Now that you know everything, is there anything else to say? No, I don't have any objection to whatever Dad does. Okay, Mr. Ye nodded. Tomorrow I will send Myru to the 5th team in Xiangxi. You and Yuxian can also move out. He looked at MRS Ye. If you can't accept my decision, we can move out together. Grandfather. Dad. Old man. Myru, Chiang Yuxian and MRS Ye spoke almost at the same time, all with expressions of disbelief. They never expected that the old man's decision would be like this. Mr. Ye continued talking to himself. Zhongliang will be transferred back soon. Let his family live here. Zhonghe, do you have any objections? No. Ye Zhonghe nodded repeatedly. I listened to Dad, and I also think Zhongliang is more suitable to be the head of the Ye family than me. He is much more thoughtful than me. Under his leadership, the Ye family will definitely become more and more prosperous. Okay. I had this idea last time something happened to Myru. I also talked with Zhongliang. He understood what I meant and told me clearly that children's mistakes cannot be accumulated by their parents. I didn't insist anymore because I felt that although you didn't have enough restraint on your wife and daughter, you were kind-hearted and steady. As you grow older, you will definitely consider things more and more thoughtfully. But in fact, over the years, you have not grown as I imagined. On the contrary, Zhongliang and Zongjun are gradually overpowering you in all aspects. At this stage, I can only do this. Don't worry, the two brothers will never stop respecting you as their elder brother because of my decision. From now on, you can go home when it's time to go home, but you can no longer control the general direction. Ye Zhonghe had no objection at all to what his father said. Moreover, he knew clearly that what his father said was true. In fact, he had always had this idea in his mind. However, people are all good-looking. Every time the words came to my lips, I swallowed them back, just to give myself another chance to try. Now that his father really said this, he suddenly felt relaxed. He loves the army and wants to be a real soldier. As for other things, he really doesn't have much interest. He used to force himself to study and it was really tiring. The father and son discussed it, but the three grandparents still couldn't accept this fact. Although Mrs. Ye thought that the old man would not spare her granddaughter so easily this time, she could not accept that her granddaughter was sent to the 5th team of Xiangxi when she was just burned. Chiang Yuxian and Mrs. Ye had the same idea. If she had known that this would be the result, she would not have helped her daughter at all. Even if her daughter was left to live in confusion, she could not let her die. Myru couldn't accept it herself. How could her cruel trick have no effect at all? Moreover, she originally thought that even if her grandfather was angry with her, the most he could do was send her abroad and leave her alone. If she had known that Grandpa had such a plan, why did she hurt herself like this? In her current situation, if she were thrown into the 5th Xiangxi team, it would be absolutely impossible for her to come out alive. Where is the 5th team in Xiangxi? When Chu Xia received a call from Zhou Mikang, she looked confused. From Zhou Mikang's words, The punishment seemed to be quite serious, but it sounded to her like she was starting over with a different team. So simple? Going to the fifth team in Xiangzi is equivalent to a death sentence. Do you understand what I'm saying? Ah, Chu Xia sat up from the bed in shock. You mean this is the name of the prison? No, this is an exile team specially set up for the abandoned members of each family. They live in the virgin forest and have to take care of their own food, clothing, housing, and transportation. If they want to escape, there are layers of defenses. Of course, if they can persist for a year, there will be what may appear in front of the world again is, do you think Yamiru has that ability? First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 834. Chu Xia was stunned for a long time before she understood. Her voice trembled slightly. Is this really Grandpa Yes' decision? Yes, when I went to see him, he promised me personally that he would give me a satisfactory answer. Then, just now, he told me the decision and asked me if I was satisfied or not. Inexplicably, Chu Xia's heart raised. How did you answer? I said no problem. That's what you said. Chu Xia stroked her forehead speechlessly. Even if you think so in your heart, you can't say that. It will hurt Grandpa Yes' heart. After all, she is his granddaughter. Then what do you want me to say? What if I soften my words and the old man doesn't handle it this way? Then wouldn't I just shoot myself in the foot? Do you think I would do such a stupid thing? Chu Xia rolled her eyes. Was she laughing at her stupidity? After thinking for a while, he asked, do Uncle Ye, Aunt Ye, and Grandma Ye all agree with Grandpa Ye's decision? Grandpa Ye said that they all agreed, but I guess only Uncle Ye agreed. Moreover, Uncle Ye's position as the head of the family has also been given to Uncle Ye. I guess Aunt Ye will hate us to death by now. Hated? Who asked her to help her daughter do immoral things? Chu Xia muttered dissatisfiedly. I don't pity them no matter what fate they end up with. I just think Uncle Ye is a little unjust. But honestly speaking, Uncle Ye's character is really not suitable to be the head of the family, and the replacement is also responsible for the Ye family. But in any case, what I am most grateful to is Grandpa Ye. It is not easy for him to make such a decision. Zhou Mikang, when Grandpa Ye needs help in the future, you can't just stand by and watch. Fool, if something happens to the old man, I will be the first to rush in. Do you think it's appropriate? Don't worry, the three brothers of the Ye family are all filial. If they can't solve the problem, our old man will step in and it's not his turn. That's a lot. That's true. After thinking about it, Chu Xia felt much better. I guess Chaeyeli, mother and daughter, are still dreaming. This time I will let them experience the feeling of being disappointed the more they hope. Zhou Mikang followed his wife's wishes and said, originally I wanted to take action, but then I thought, forget it, I don't need to take action, what happens next is enough for them to drink. You really didn't take any action at all? Chu Xia was a little unconvinced. With Master Zhou's defensive character, how could he not take the opportunity to spread some salt and let the other party have a longer memory? My little wife understands me. I just expressed my congratulations to Zhang Yuzheng for remarrying. I also gave him a wedding red envelope. I guess he will register for marriage tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. This is a good thing. Chu Xia immediately beamed. This move of yours has completely dissipated my depression these days. It doesn't matter who I marry at the destination. You dare to mess with me, you really think your life is too long. Zhou Mikang has a black streak on his head. Is his wife praising him? Well, he took it as a compliment. The young couple stayed sticky for a while before hanging up the phone. Chu Xia ran out to tell Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe the good news. As a result, the couple looked at each other. They all looked unbearable. Xia, isn't this inappropriate? Zhao Yulan said, and Lin Baohe quickly agreed. Yes, Xia, It's actually nothing. This is not good, and it seems that we are too small-minded. Chu Xia looked helplessly at Mr. Wan for help. Grandpa, what do you say? Xiaomi did the right thing. Mr. Wan glanced at Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe, with a look of helplessness on his face. You too. Kindness must also have a degree. For such people, if you don't let them remember, they will always thinking of ways to disgust you. Think about it, if the impatient named Zhangajin hadn't revealed her flaws early on and followed their plan, what would have happened? As it is now, Yulan, you are still very angry. Trust between a husband and wife is indeed the most important thing. However, when people encounter these things, they often think that they are thinking about each other, but they get angry because of it. Dislike. This is what they took advantage of. If Chu Xia hadn't been so sensitive, it would have been 9 out of 10 that this matter would have gone as they wanted. Is it worth it that you two are still here to intercede for them? Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe remained silent. Although the old man said this, they still couldn't bear it. In their opinion, this matter was really not worthy of death. Father, mother, Yamiru's character is like a dog's habit of eating shit. If you let her go this time, she will fight back next time. Sooner or later, she will hurt me and you will think it is appropriate to punish her. No, no, Zhao Yulan waved her hands repeatedly. As soon as you say this, mother will understand and stop thinking about it. I really don't think about it anymore. Uncle Wan, Xia, I don't feel sorry for Yamiru, I just feel sorry for Uncle Ye. When I was there before, I interacted with Uncle Ye several times. He is really a good person, but why are good people not rewarded? Out of nowhere? He is the most saddened by such a thing. Hey. Lin Baohe sighed heavily and hugged his head. This is gouging out his heart. Xiao is not as fragile as you think. Mr. Wan looked at Lin Baohe funnily. Do you think he is a simple person? If that were the case, when the Zhou family was taken care of, why wasn't his family taken care of? Don't worry. Well, such a little thing can't defeat him. Moreover, his granddaughter almost brought shame to the Ye family. His determination this time was definitely not because of what happened this time. To this day, he really has no other choice. Being sent to the 5th team in Xiangzi may not mean death. Another possibility is to survive and become a top field talent. If Yamiru really has that ability, the Ye family will make a lot of money. Of course, even if she survives, she will need to go through a series of tests to decide whether she can be released. If her character is still as extreme and jealous as now, then she must continue to stay in it. Zhao Yulan breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. If you become more capable and still have the same temper, it would be better not to send him there. The next day, when Chu Xia came home from school, she saw a man in his 20s sitting in the hall. The man was over 1.7 meters tall and had a simple appearance. When he saw her coming in, he stood up awkwardly. This is Wang Jiangang, Zhang Yuzhan's son, who has also just entered the house, Zhao Yulan introduced. Oh, hello. Chu Xia greeted him and sat on the sofa. Li Xinlai, who had gone home with her, sat next to her, thought about it, and asked in a low voice, how about I go to your room for a while? No need. Chu Xia shook her head. There was nothing to hide about this matter. Of course, the most important thing was her recognition of Li Xinlai's character. Wang Jiangang stood up, bowed deeply to everyone, and said, I'm here to apologize for my mother. I don't know why my mother came to the capital with this purpose. My father passed away a few years ago. My mother and I were left to depend on each other. I was really worried about my mother when I came to college, so when she asked her to come with me, I immediately agreed. Only when I got here did I realize that things were not as simple as I thought. First of all, the place where my mother lived was a problem. Fortunately, the school was very safe, and there were other foreigners setting up bunks in the corridor, so they kept my mother company. Originally, I planned to find a place for my mother to live after the allowance was paid, even if she lived in someone's storage room. Unexpectedly, Uncle Lin helped my mother. When my mother told me, I was very happy and determined to repay Uncle Lin well when I was able. Who knew that when I came to see my mother yesterday, she told me that she was going back. I was quite puzzled, and in the end I had no choice but to ask her, so she told me the purpose of her visit and the causes and consequences. To be honest, I was very angry. Growing up, I respected my mother very much. She was very able to endure hardships and was very kind to my father and me. I really didn't expect that she would do such a thing. However, after thinking about it, I came to understand that she did all this for me. In her eyes, the county magistrate is a top figure. If she didn't listen, I might not even be able to find a job after graduation. Arrive. She doesn't really want to destroy the relationship between uncle and aunt, she just wants to complete the task they gave her. Uncle, aunt, sister, I beg you, for the sake of my mother who only cares about her children, forgive her. Once. In the past, when my mother and I were together, I could still protect her. If she went back on her own, the few bachelors in the village would definitely find trouble with her. I promise that from now on, my mother will be able to do her work peacefully and will never get involved in any of my uncle and aunt's affairs. If my uncle and aunt don't want to see her, just let me wait for a while. I've paid my allowance, please give my mother a different place and a different job, please. At the end of his speech, he bowed deeply and never straightened up. Chu Xia looked at Zhao Yulan. This matter was for her mother, so of course she had to let her mother make the decision. Child, what are you doing? Zhao Yulan sighed and stepped forward to help Wang Jian gang up. I don't like what your mother did, but if it's the reasons you mentioned, so does she. You poor fellow, let your mother come in and I'll have a few words with her. Thank you, auntie. Wang Jiangang ran out like a gust of wind. Chu Xia looked at Zhao Yulan with a surprised look on her face. Mom, how did you know Zhang Yuzhen was outside? I didn't see anyone outside when I came back. Can she leave without worries if she doesn't send her son here? She must be hiding in some nook and cranny. Hey, she is also a hard-working woman who lives for her children. Forget it, let's not be angry. When she comes in, I will chat with her. Just a few words and let this matter go away, okay? Although Zhao Yulan said this to everyone, her eyes fell on Chu Xia's face. Obviously, what she cared about most was her daughter's opinion. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 835. Mom, whatever you think is good. Although she felt that Zhao Yulan was still too soft-hearted, Chu Xia did not interfere and said with a smile, as long as mother is happy, I will be happy. Xia, mother just thinks that it's not easy for her. Give her a chance. If she makes another mistake, we won't give her any face, okay? Okay. Chu Xia hugged Zhao Yulan's arm in a funny way. I didn't say I disagreed, why do you keep explaining? Your mother herself feels that she is too soft-hearted. Lin Bao he answered with a smile, however, it is better to be soft-hearted than cruel. Mr. Wan answered with a smile, don't worry, good people are rewarded. Come in, Li Xinlai whispered to remind a few people. He is about 1.6 meters tall, with a slim build, wearing a pair of green cloth trousers and a blue cloth jacket. His eyebrows are not bad, but he has a sad look. This was the first time in early summer that she could clearly see Zhang Yuzhen's appearance. The last time was at night, and she felt uneasy about being caught. She just felt that the other person was incomparable to her mother, but she really didn't see what he looked like. Clear. Yulan, Bao he, I'm sorry. As soon as she entered the door, Zhang Yuzhen bowed deeply to Zhao Yulan and Lin Bao he, feeling visibly embarrassed when she felt Chu Xia's appraising eyes. Sit down. Zhao Yulan smiled at her. You have raised a good son. Since you are thinking about him, I won't say anything more. If you want to continue working in the toy factory, just stay there. In fact, speaking of it, we fellow villagers should help each other out when we go out, but your mistake is that you should not sow the relationship between me and Bao-he. You would rather demolish 10 temples than break up a family, right? I am not saying this now to find fault, I just want to make it clear to you. Bao-he didn't tell me before. It's not that I miss you, it's that I don't want me to think of those bad things in the past. Now that it's over, let's go. This is the last time I'll mention this in front of you. From now on, let's stop interacting with each other. Everyone will feel uncomfortable, right? Yes, it's all my fault. Zhang Yuzhen sighed and looked at Zhao Yulan with a sincere face. Yulan, I mean it when I say you are luckier than me. What happened back then is in the past. Whatever you choose, you have to bear with it. I told the truth in front of my son that I was really not blessed to be married to his father. When he was alive, he really beat me a lot. Now that he is dead, his family didn't help him at all, and even took away everything from his valuable home. We, orphans and widowers, just got through it. Seeing that Zhang Gang was starting to make a difference, I held back my energy and wanted to win face with my parents-in-law. When the Che family came to my door, I really didn't have the guts to refuse, but having lived to this age, I have understood that I did something wrong when I was young. Of course, I would not really want to ruin your relationship, otherwise, I would not have been exposed in such a short period of time. My thought is, I can't afford to offend them. I don't want to harm you, so I'll let you know my thoughts as soon as possible. In this way, she can't really do anything to Jian Gang. You don't care about a lot of things, and I'm not ignorant. Now I don't have any money, so I can't change my place even if I want to, so I will work in a toy factory for now. When I have almost saved up, I will move to another place and promise not to appear in front of you again in this life. Although this statement is suspected of liberating herself, Chu Xia feels that it has a certain degree of credibility. Judging from Zhang Yuzhen's appearance, she is not really stupid. Being able to educate her son so well by herself should show that she still has the ability. She has a certain mind, so it is possible that, as she said, her eagerness to expose Zhao Yulan was actually to free herself. If she looked like this, she wouldn't be considered hateful. Moreover, when she looked in through the crack in the door, she was deeply impressed by the way Zhang Yuzhen sat working under the lamp. She believed that the other person was a good mother and should also be a good woman. Of course, I still have to make my own decision on this matter. Therefore, even though she was thinking so in her heart, Chu Xia didn't say anything, she just sat there with a pale face, no expression on her face. After a long while, Zhao Yulan sighed solemnly, looked at Zhang Yuzhen seriously, and said word by word, I believe it, I believe what you said. Zhang Yuzhen's eyes turned red. When she explained, she was already prepared to be humiliated, but she didn't expect that the result would be like this, which made her feel even more guilty. When she was young, Lin Baohe was very handsome, and many girls secretly liked her. She was the bravest one, so she settled down with Lin Baohe early. Unfortunately, when it came time to talk about marriage, she realized that the Lin family was so harsh on Lin Baohe. Her mother told her that if she really married into the Lin family, she would never be able to change her life. She was so poor and partial. Mom and Dad, are you able to live your life well? After thinking about it, she became afraid, so she quickly broke off the engagement and married Wang Jiangang's father, Wang Shudi. It was okay when they first got married, but later on, the other party didn't take her seriously, the husband didn't take his wife seriously, and her parents-in-law certainly didn't care about her either. At that time, she began to miss the good days with Lin Baohe. She believed that if she married Lin Baohe, he would not treat her like that. Later, she always ran into Lin Baohee when she returned to her parents' home. Every time, Lin Baohee walked over with his head lowered, and she deliberately called his name with sobs. Lin Baohee was soft-hearted and always came back to persuade her to live a good life. Although she could no longer be with Lin Baohee, having his advice made her feel much better. She never even thought that Lin Baohee would be with another woman again, because in her opinion, the Lin family's harshness towards Lin Baohee would scare every woman. As a result, she learned that Lin Baohee was going to marry Zhao Yulan. That day, she had a fight with her husband on some pretext, and then returned to her parents' home with injuries all over her body. Then, she stood in front of the door of Lin's house, which had a red word happy on it, and stared at it for a long time. She thought that Lin Baohee and Zhao Yulan were just getting along together, but after they met several times, she found that Lin Baohee was really good to Zhao Yulan. That kind of tenderness and affection was given to her before, but gave it to another woman. She felt very uncomfortable in her heart. She couldn't accept that the other woman could treat other women better than her, so she always went to Lin Baohee intentionally or unintentionally, and deliberately let Zhao Yulan see it, and did so in front of Zhao Yulan. Said she regretted it. Even though her husband would beat her up every time he found out, she still enjoyed it. In short, as long as she saw Zhao Yulan unhappy, she would be particularly happy. It wasn't until her husband passed away and the burden of life fell on her that she stopped worrying about things she couldn't get rid of and put all her thoughts on her son. After so many years, she has understood many things. When she received the task assigned to her by Che Yelai, she was mentally prepared to take revenge. She even thought that if Zhao Yulan promised that it would not be difficult for her son, even if it cost her life, she would give it. In short, she had thought about all the possibilities, but she did not expect it to be like this. Compared with the other party, whether it was her before or now, she looked like a clown jumping up and down in the troupe. The past events came to mind, and Zhang Yuzhen burst into tears, feeling guilty, wronged, annoyed and relieved. She could no longer control herself due to all kinds of emotional entanglements. Lin Baohee, who had always had a sullen face, sighed secretly when he saw her like this. He did not hate this woman. Without her giving up, he would not have found such a good wife as Zhao Yulan. However, he was annoyed with her because his wife had suffered so many wrongs because of her, both before and now. But seeing her like this, all the worries disappeared. Forget it, just think of everything as a test of his relationship with Yulan. In fact, after this incident, the knot between him and his wife that he never mentioned has been completely resolved, which can be considered a gain. Zhao Yulan was soft-hearted. When Zhang Yuzhen cried like this, she burst into tears. She couldn't figure out whether she was pitying the other person or recalling the past. Looking at the chaos among the people, Chu Xia was completely speechless. Zhang Yuzhen was quite capable of making an apology like this. Wang Jiangang stood aside with a look of confusion on his face. He never expected such a scene. Therefore, at this moment, he did not want to persuade his mother who was crying in a mess. Mr. Wan's expression became much more relaxed, and he was still pretending that he could see clearly. This was better than killing them all and making this honest couple feel uncomfortable. Zhao Yulan, who originally planned to stay away from each other forever, finally took the initiative to invite the other party to stay for dinner. Chu Xia looked at her mother awkwardly, not knowing what to say. Auntie is so kind-hearted, Li Xinlai whispered in Chu Xia's ear. Actually, it's better to be a soft-hearted person. Although sometimes it's easy to suffer losses, you usually make big gains from small losses, really. Compared with Zhang Yuzhen's good luck, Che Yelai was extremely weak, because when she was still enjoying herself at home, her daughter brought her news that she couldn't believe no matter what, Zhang Yuzheng was getting married. Are you mistaken? Che Yelai frowned, with a look of disbelief. Zhang Meixiang sighed heavily. Mom, Can I be wrong about this kind of thing? Just because I was afraid that I heard wrongly, I went to Dad to ask, and the answer is yes. No, I'm going to find your father. I have to explain it clearly to him. I don't believe that he would be inappropriate if I asked him to be an official. Che-Yeli combed her hair and quickly got out of bed. Just as she was about to walk out, she hurriedly come back and pick up the powder puff and apply powder on your face. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 836. After applying powder and eyebrows, she combed her hair and braided it into two big braids hanging on her shoulders. Che-Yeli looked at her daughter. What do you mean, can you compare with that little widow? Zhang Maiziang looked at her speechlessly. Mom, can she compare with you? You are really destroying your own ambition and losing your prestige to others. It's your father who has the final say whether we can compare or not. If we can't compare, why would your father want to marry her? Che-Yeli sighed and looked at her daughter. Maiziang, you understand, this man, he is ruthless. When he can benefit from you, he will listen to you in everything. When he sees that you are useless, he kicks him away and lives his own life. How could Mom not know what your dad is thinking? Since he married Mom, he has never tasted the feeling of being held up and served. Now that the little widow is groveling in front of him, he immediately feels dizzy. When you are looking for your husband's family, you can't look for a man who wants to gain glory. If you are looking for someone like Lin Bao, he may be honest, but he is serious about women. Only by following a man like that can you enjoy happiness. Zhang Maiziang looked at Che-Yeli with a puzzled look on her face. Mom, haven't you always looked down on Lin Baohe and Zhao Yulan? Why are you speaking for them now? That was before, Mom understands it now. Che-Yeli sighed. Human, you just have to put your eyes aside to understand. It's too late in my life for Mom to understand. It's not too late for you, forget it. Stop talking, Mom will go find your dad now. No matter what you do, you can't favor the little widow. Mom, let me accompany you. Zhang Maiziang knew very well that now she and her mother were like grasshoppers on the same rope. If her father really married Lu Guifen, it would be difficult for her to find a partner in the future. Originally, I wanted to tell Dad about the agreement between Mom and that woman, but after thinking about it, if I tell Dad, he shouldn't do it. Then there is really no way out. After leaving the door, Zhang Maiziang explained to Che-Yeli why she didn't tell the truth. Che-Yeli sighed. Maiziang, you did the right thing. Mom has to talk to your dad about this. When the couple arrived at the dormitory where Zhang Yuzheng lived, Lu Guifen and Zhang Yuzheng were having dinner. Lu Guifen's daughter Yuan Yuan was sitting in Zhang Yueshen's arms holding a bun and chewing it. Che-Yeli's face immediately darkened. In the years since she gave birth to her daughter, she had never seen her husband treat her daughter like this, so she sneered, "Are you just trying to take advantage of other people's children? What are you here for?" Zhang Yuzheng had already guessed that she would come. Naturally, he was not surprised. He just looked at her calmly and said, "We are divorced. I will live my life. You live yours. It's best to meet less if nothing happens. You want to get married?" Che-Yeli frowned and stared at him. "Yes." "Are you so impatient?" "Yes." "Why did you promise my dad when you married me? Now you have the nerve to do such a thing. Has your heart been eaten by a dog?" Zhang Maiziang secretly stroked her forehead. "On the way, my mother analyzed how to handle a man, and she agreed not to get angry when she saw my father. But as soon as I walked in, my true colors were revealed." However, she was not worried. Her own father knew the temptation as long as he was reinstated. He couldn't see the little widow in front of him. Just as Mom said, Dad just wants to marry this little widow because he enjoys the feeling of being looked up to that he has never enjoyed before. As long as he is given the capital to continue to be looked up to by most people, he will definitely come back. Mom sighed. She patiently listened to Che Yelai's scolding. Jang Yuzhong interrupted her, "Okay, what qualifications do you have to come here to yell at me now? Just go out if you have nothing to do, we are going to eat." As he spoke, he patted the child who shrank in fear. "Don't be afraid, Yuan, she is a crazy woman. Dad, get rid of her." Lu Gaifen, who originally wanted to take Yuan into her arms, retracted her hand. She had suffered enough from raising a child alone and being bullied. She would not let go of the happiness she had obtained so easily. Che Yelai's nose was almost crooked with anger. Without thinking, she stepped forward and tugged on Zhang Yueshan's clothes. However, Zhang Yuzhong pushed her and staggered her, and warned, "If you dare to act reckless again, don't blame my men ruthless. I let you be a couple before, but now to me, you are no better than a passerby. If you have any sense, leave here immediately, otherwise, if you hurt your arms and legs, don't blame me for not warning you." "You actually threatened me," Che Yelai howled and wanted to pounce. Zhang Meixiang quickly grabbed her and looked at Zhang Yuzhong. "Dad, what are you doing? Although Mom divorced you, I have always been thinking about you. How could you do this to her?" Zhang Yuzhong snorted coldly, "I don't need her worrying about me." After being penetrated like this by her daughter, Che Yelai regained her consciousness and looked at Zhang Yuzhong with a cold face. "If I want you to be the deputy county magistrate again, you don't need me to worry about you." "Unnecessary." "No need." Che Yelai looked at him in disbelief. "You think I'm teasing you, right? What I said is true. I have already discussed it with the family, and they agreed to help you. The official was reinstated and you actually said you didn't need it? Okay, if you don't need me to notify the family immediately, this matter ends here. Zhang Yuzhong, I have given you the opportunity. If you don't seize it, you can't blame anyone." Zhang Yuzhong looked at her calmly. "Don't worry, I will never blame anyone." Che Yelai was stunned there. This situation was beyond her expectation. She said harsh words because she knew Zhang Yueshan's temper. As long as she threw out this bait, Zhang Yuzhong would definitely take the bait. But why is the current situation different from what she imagined? She didn't believe that a person's personality could change so much in a short period of time, or maybe Zhang Yuzhong didn't believe that she could be associated with the family. "Dad, what my mother said is true, I can testify." Zhang Meixiang also thought that her father did not believe what her mother said, so she quickly stood up as a witness for her mother. "Whether what she said is true or false has nothing to do with me. I just want to live like this." Zhang Yuzhong looked at Che Yelai with a calm expression. "I believe you have the ability, but I don't need it now. I still say the same thing, we have divorced, so don't meet each other if nothing happens in the future. By the way, I will also tell you the scope of this trouble, which is Meixiang getting engaged, getting married and having children. Other than that, there is no need to talk about it. Looking for me? You. Che Yelai pointed at Zhang Yuzhong, speechless. Over there, although Lu Gaifen lowered her head, her heart felt as sweet as honey. Being protected by someone like this was something she never dreamed of. What they have experienced in the past few months is like a dream. The child's father was beaten to death because of excessive gambling. Therefore, the mother and daughter are looked down upon wherever they go. In other words, they have never been looked down upon by anyone. She originally thought that she would spend the rest of her life in such disdain, but unexpectedly, her job was suddenly transferred from the textile factory to the sugar factory. Compared to the textile factory, the job in the sugar factory was really easy. She asked why she was transferred here, and the leader said that someone named her to work in the sugar factory, and gave her a task to help take care of Zhang Yuzhong, who lived next door. She is not stupid. Jang Yus-hung is single, and it is very clear what it means to ask her to take care of him. However, she does not resist. Isn't this an opportunity for her? Unexpectedly, she would get married so soon. As for whether Che Yelai would come to the door to cause trouble, she was not worried. However, when she saw the other party coming and Zhang Yueshan's attitude, she was not worried at all. Lu Gaifen, who was so engrossed in her thoughts, did not expect that Che Yelai would suddenly attack her. She screamed in pain and quickly pulled the hand holding her hair. Che Yelai took the opportunity to pinch her neck hard. Wow wow wow. Yuan's cry reminded Zhang Yus-hung. He quickly put the child down and went to pick up Che Yelai. To be honest, he didn't have much feelings for Lu Gaifen, but this was the only way he could go now, and he had arrived. At this age, it would be better to obey the person's arrangements honestly and save yourself a lot of trouble. People, if you make a mistake, you will make a mistake every step. The mistakes in the past can no longer be corrected. In the future, he should not make the same mistakes again. If he wants to blame, he can only blame his own bad luck. Look at Lin Bao. He quickly shook his head. Stop yourself from thinking randomly. After finally pulling Che Yelai away, he also suffered several cuts on his face. When he got angry, he slapped Che Yelai on the face, and then pushed her out of the door. Zhang Meiziang stared blankly at the sudden turn of events. Her brain was really running out. Her father was no longer the same father, and her mother was no longer the same mother. What on earth should she do? Che Yelai, who was pushed outside the door, couldn't bear to do so, so she just stood at the door and started to curse, causing all the neighbors to come out to watch the fun. Zhang Yus-hung, who had expected this for a long time, did not get angry and looked at Zhang Meiziang calmly. If you don't want your mother to continue to be embarrassed, just take her away. What I said here is clear enough. You are already over 18 years old, and dad has no longer fulfilled his parenting responsibilities. If you want to come and see dad, he will come. If you don't want to come, dad won't be angry with you. When you find someone, you can tell dad. Dad will try his best to help you save your dowry, but you can see how much your dad is capable now, so don't have too high expectations. After all, dad still has a daughter to take care of. Also, in the future, when you have something to do, you can come to dad. Do it yourself. Zhang Meiziang looked at him blankly. Dad, do you mean that you really don't want me and mom anymore? If you think so. After a pause, Zhang Yus-hung sighed. Forget it. If possible, I really want to dig out dad's heart to see what it is made of. Zhang Meiziang sneered and went out, pulling Che Yelai, who was still yelling, Mom, let's go. For him now, it doesn't matter what you look like, just save some face for yourself. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 837. Then what happened was that I ran away from home in the rain in early summer. Since then, Chu Xia has become much colder towards Luo Meiying, and she no longer mentions changing her name. / left bracket. The fastest updates are all on SI, Novel Network / Or because she feels guilty. In the past 6 months, no matter how cold Chu Xia is to Luo Meiying, she will protect Chu Xia. However, Chu Xia does not mention the matter of changing her name, but she has to mention it every once in a while. There's no need to change it. Chu Xia sounds nice. Lin Chuxia felt that the name was given by Chu Xia's parents. She couldn't take over their daughter's body and then change the name they gave her. And the key point was that her original name was Lin Chuxia. No matter what, she couldn't lose this only familiar thing. The two chatted for a few more words. Luo Xiaoxian felt a little bored when she didn't get a warm response from Chu Xia, so she stood up and left, and made an appointment with Chu Xia. If the uncle's family dared to bully her again, they would call her immediately and she would help her. Take it out. Watching Luo Xiaoxian's figure fading away, Chu Xia sighed slightly. In the past 6 months, if the other party hadn't come to support her from time to time, her family's life would have been more difficult, or she really should have changed. Change your attitude towards her? Xia, Xuani'er is crying from hunger. Do you have anything to eat? As Chu Xia expected, as soon as Luo Xiaoxian left, the aunt came to look for Chu Xia. Auntie, what can I get here to eat? Chu Xia looked at Zheng Sanqiao with a smile, and exposed her directly. Are you feeling sorry for the sweet potatoes you gave me and want to take them back? No. Haha. Zheng Sanqiao laughed a few times and changed the subject. In early summer, when a family lives under the same roof, there is always a sense of intimacy and a sense of familiarity, don't you think? Chu Xia agreed with a smile. What the uncle said is true, but there is one thing I don't quite understand. The uncle is the captain, and my parents work under him. The uncle always gives the dirty work to my parents. When recording work points, not only do you not record more but also less, so what do you mean? This kid, are you going to be the captain of your uncle? If he dares to favor your parents even a little bit, someone will immediately file a complaint. Chu Xia, do you think it's none of your business if your uncle is raped? Silly boy, this is related to whether you can find a good husband in the future. Speaking of this, Zheng Sanqiao glanced around and leaned in front of Chu Xia. Lowering his voice, he said, actually, your uncle secretly helped your parents a lot. Your parents didn't tell you because they were afraid that Luo Meiying would know if you were not strict with your words. Alas, who told your father and mother to be honest people? Forget it, let your aunt do this evil thing. One day, you will understand whether your aunt is doing it for your own good. Let's put it this way, Luo Meiying is about the same age as you, but she is not as good looking as you. The little sisters don't say that when it comes to kissing, it's sweet and sweet. When it comes time to talk about kissing, who gives way to whom? Seeing Zheng Sanqiao stop and stare at her earnestly, Lin Chuxia found it funny. In the other person's mind, she was just a fool. Thinking this in her heart, the expression on Lin Chuxia's face was indifferent. Don't everyone in the village say that Meiying is prettier than me? How come it turns out that I am prettier than Meiying here? Oh, you stupid kid. Zheng Sanqiao's voice became softer. If this is really a child from a rich family, not just working people, they will definitely care about your little appearance. People in the village, when people say that, it's pantothenic acid, do you understand? Lin Chuxia nodded, I understand. Have you finished talking? I'm going to cut the sesame cakes. Zheng Sanqiao felt that there was a feeling of anger in the pit of her heart that would not come or go. She had been talking passionately here for a long time. Was it in vain? You kid. Zheng Sanqiao held back his anger and grabbed Lin Chuxia. My aunt said this just to let you know. From now on, don't tell Luo Meiying anything about our family. If her father takes advantage of her and seduces your uncle's wife, it will be difficult for you to marry into a good family in the future. Chu Xia nodded, yes. Zheng Sanqiao opened her mouth gloomily and didn't make a sound for a long time. Seeing Lin Chuxia was about to go out, she hurriedly grabbed her and said, Xia, do you still hold grudges against your eldest uncle? Huh? Lin Chuxia stared at her doubtfully. It's about the last time you and Luo Meiying changed their names. What I told you was all true. Who would have thought that you, a kid, would be so serious? Lin Chuxia's lips curled up with a hint of coldness. It turned out that Lin Chuxia and Luo Meiying had a quarrel that day, and Zheng Sanqiao got involved. In other words, it was Zheng Sanqiao who helped her come to this dimension and become Lin Chuxia. Damn it, this damn Zheng Sanqiao has brought her to this bad era where even rabbits don't want to poop. Lin Chuxia didn't want to say a word to Zheng Sanqiao now, and immediately pushed her away with a drooped face. Where's the sweet potato? Zheng Sanqiao stopped pretending and kept talking for a long time. She couldn't get enough of it, so she didn't achieve her goal at all, so she decided to get the most affordable one. Lin Chuxia glared at her. You are such a big man, do you think what you say is nonsense? Is there any reason to take back the things you gave out? Get out. XX, don't blame her for speaking rudely. She has endured this for half a year, and her eyeballs are almost boiling out. After half a day, everything is caused by this damn woman. If she didn't get paid by killing, she really wants to strangle this dead woman. Woman. I've rebelled against your destiny. I've really rebelled against your destiny. Zheng Sanqiao's face turned red with anger, and he raised his hand to slap Chu Xia on the face. I grabbed something and blocked it. Ah! Seeing the blood pouring from Zheng Sanqiao's hands, Chu Xia was dumbfounded. She didn't mean it. She really didn't mean it. She didn't know that the scissors she took over were just a pair of scissors. Moreover, she was really anxious. Just Zheng Sanqiao's calloused hand slapped her face. Do you still need to think about the consequences? Lu Miking, who was looking after the children in the East Room, had been waiting for her mother-in-law to carry the sweet potatoes back. When she heard the screams, she ran over immediately. Then, he let out an earth-shattering howl. It's a murder, it's a murder, Chu Xia, you damn girl. After saying that, he ran into the yard and shouted, come here, help, there's a murder, come on people, they killed people. Lu Miking was beaten up by Luo Meiying, and she was still simmering with anger. Now, it happened to be all the fault of Chu Xia. She was eager to make things worse and ruin Chu Xia's reputation. There are only 3 people in the family. How can I say that it is not just a matter of words between her and her mother-in-law? Newly uploaded, please recommend, please collect.